Good afternoon and welcome to the Essential HR Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Gorman, and I'm here today with a good friend of mine, Greg Mackey, owner and vice president of Pure Core Health and Fitness over in Mishawaka, Indiana. And we're going to talk about the benefits of a wellness program in your organization and overall health these days. I know it's an important topic and one that's in the news quite a bit with what's going on, but thought we'd get together. I know we've tried to get together a few times, Greg, and would like to just have you start out and maybe introduce yourself, talk about your background and how you came to be at Pure Core, and just a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Brian. I actually have a marketing background, been in manufacturing for many years. And as a marketer, we have our external customers, and if you're a good marketer too, you turn yourself inside and look at the company too, and you have internal customers. So I actually found myself working quite a bit with HR departments and with environmental health and safety departments, and working on programs to help employees as well too, because it was very important for marketers to communicate internally as well. So with that being said, I began to find actually a bit of a love to helping people in their workplace environments. So it's kind of natural for me in the direction I've headed to get to this point to do something a little bit more. Now, obviously, but your listeners don't, that my wife and I own a new fitness club that we started last year, and it's a small studio-based club. And of course, we do the things a lot of clubs do. We do group classes, fitness classes, and we do training-based classes too, and group-based activities. So what I always wanted to do, Brian, was to do something a little bit more. And our mission here at Pure Core, in fact, our tagline is transforming lives together, because we know that it takes a group. You can't go about life on your own. It's very difficult to do that. And so when we kind of come full circle and we look at this concept of wellness, it's more than just going to work out every once in a while. There's a whole heck of a lot more to a person's wellness than just their physical condition and whatnot. In fact, Brian, if I kind of turn it on you for a second, if I were to ask you really quickly to give me, just in a quick response, if I were to tell you, Brian, what is the opposite of wellness? What would you tell me really quickly? What is the opposite of wellness?
The opposite of wellness. I guess it would just be a state of being unwell, unhealthy.
Right. Yeah. Unhealthy.
Yeah.
Sickness, maybe.
Sure.
That kind of thing. Right. So then, of course, we can look at wellness in terms of physical wellness, and we can look at wellness in terms of mental wellness.
Sure.
As well. So if I were to ask you that same question with mental wellness, then your response would be, well, then maybe mentally sick or mentally ill.
Right.
And so we tend to look at wellness, I think, Brian, on the poles, on the extremes of, and I think what we need to do is take a much broader view of what the concept of wellness is when we're talking about all of our lives, because to be quite honest, I think everybody has a little bit of unwellness in them at some point. Mm-hmm. You're not perfect. You got to work on something. Mm-hmm. So, but when we tend to say, hey, I got to work on my mental wellness, there's immediately like, oh, what's wrong with you? And really, that's not the case. So I think that overall, when we started this business here, we knew that we would be doing a gym, but we also wanted to be involved in wellness on many levels, on mental wellness, on character building. It takes a lot to change your life, your physical life, for the better, and it's going to start in the mind. It's without having the right mindset, as you well know, it's going to be very difficult to constantly work out and get your body in shape, because it's not a pleasant thing to do naturally. So.
Right. No, absolutely. I 100% agree with you. And I know that, we talked a little bit about, and on your website too, you can see this, but the three foundational life pillars, the three categories that you talked about, and maybe if you wouldn't mind kind of going through those, what they are and what they maybe mean to you. I know that's an important part of your organization there and what you guys do, but maybe hitting on those three areas would be fantastic.
Yeah, so as a part of, sort of our holistic look at wellness, we look at when we're trying to devise how we would put a wellness program together, three concepts always popped out, and we often hear of the terms mind, body, and spirit as being more of a holistic wellness concept. And I have absolutely no doubt that mind and body are for sure two of those pillars, and they are with us. Our 3 Life Wellness program is based on the 3 pillars. Now me being the marketing guy, I've got to do something a little bit different. So I take mind and body and I put those words into Latin. So it's cerebrum and corpus. And then the last is ethos, which is different from spirit. I think that overall wellness, if you can get your mind right, and you also then can take that next step to work on your physical health so that you're doing well physically, you're then in a position to positively affect others. And so whether it be in a work environment or a social environment of any kind, you can always know the guy that's attractive versus the person that repels someone. The person that has their mind right, they're much more magnetic. They'll come into a room and just, people are automatically attracted to them. And that's a guy that's got some wellness figured out. And he will turn around and positively affect those others in that room. And that's that positive ethos that I'm talking about. So our 3 pillars, our 3 life pillars are cerebrum, corpus, and ethos, or ethos being that cultural environment built on positive character.
No, that's great stuff. I know we talked about, maybe, and I read an article and I honestly can't remember the title of the article right now, but it talked about, what is pandemic time, right? But it also talked about a pandemic of unhealthiness, which I thought was an interesting term. Maybe that's something that we're all kind of experiencing now too. And you're right, it can fit into all categories, mental and the physical part of it. What are some ways that people can maybe take that small step, I guess, and maybe their organization doesn't have a wellness program in place, but they're challenged themselves to start to get healthy. What are some steps they can take to or maybe even a first step, and maybe it's as simple as that, right, Greg? Just take that first step and try and improve yourself.
Yeah, well, you're right, Brian. And I think that in the old AA programs, and I wouldn't say old AA programs, they're still very viable today. The first thing is, you got to get away from denial. You got to accept, what your problem is. So just what you're saying is very important. And yes, you were right. Ironically, I jotted down a note here before we got on the air, and I actually put the word pandemic down, not because of the COVID pandemic, but the fact is that unfortunately, these death rates all over the world globally occur with this respiratory virus primarily because of unhealthy conditions. Everybody knows that. They've seen it. They know that, a high percentage, in fact, they're saying 94% of COVID deaths are due to comorbidities that occur, and it causes kind of a domino effect and, begins to take people down. And so, really, we do have a global pandemic, and I can talk about a couple of numbers here. The CDC here in this country says that 75% of our U.S. adult population are considered overweight, and now about 45% are obese, at least in the first classification of obesity. And so we're seeing numbers where people really are not taking care of themselves very well, and there's lots of there's a whole, we can talk for another 2 hours on why that is, but just so we know that to be the case. And so how does that affect the workforce, for instance? Well, obviously, if you're in a condition of, say, obesity, and you're presenting those kind of problems, you have a higher risk factor for getting sick, for having potential problems. And if you're on, say, a company's insurance program, you're a higher risk for for that as well. So, those people that are in management or in HR or above in the C-suites are trying to figure out, well, gosh, is it good to have a healthy population of employees? And I think the obvious answer is yes. But what does that mean, right? So I think getting healthy, and you can relate to this too, and you can even talk to it yourself in your own fitness journey. You've done very well. I have to commend you, Brian. I know I've seen you. You've been coming consistently to our place. You've lost some weight. I can tell that. You've gained strength. You're consistent. You've got the discipline down some. That is not an easy thing for people to do.
Right.
And probably if you look back, you go, it wasn't easy for you.
No.
Certainly was not easy for me.
Right. Sure.
And it's a two-sided coin too. It's not only fitness and working out, getting to the gym, or working out at home, or whatever you would do, but it's also about your diet and nutrition. It's the other side of that coin. It's a huge part of the coin. You cannot have one without the other, and be successful as an individual in improving your health. And so, with that, coming full circle again, talking about what people can do in companies. It's a difficult thing to do because it's still always up to the individual to become healthy. And you can't tell somebody, you either get healthy or I'm going to fire you. I mean,
right.
It doesn't work too well.
Right.
Not good management.
Sure.
So,
sure.
So how you do that, in a combination of push motivators and pull motivators to get someone to bring that horse to the water and then to make them drink. And that's, I think, where people struggle all the time, especially people that are putting together wellness programs in companies. They tend to think along the lines of, well, we incentivize by maybe offering bonuses, or we, maybe give, PTO, some paid time off as incentive and that. But those traditional types of incentives don't necessarily work in the wellness scheme. And that's why it's a little bit more difficult. I would never recommend, Brian, anybody say, if you're trying to incentivize a wellness program, paying 100% of someone's gym fees, for instance.
Right.
Because that's just not going to incentivize anybody to do anything. They really have to have skin in the game, the
Sure.
individual, that particular employee. And so the important thing, getting back to what we had talked about earlier, is that you have to work on the mindset, and that's the trick. I know that the company I used to work for in manufacturing struggled with their wellness programs. In fact, I do know that they had 50 people sign up because everybody was excited about doing wellness at first. And then after 6 weeks, out of those 50 people, there were 7 left. And so, well, gosh, what happened to the other 43? Man, it's because it's kind of the old, New Year's resolution thing. Everybody gets excited, or they make this decision. I want to lose weight. I want to, get better health. And it's easy to want to do that. And then you get out there and you do it. And you find out it's a pretty difficult thing to do, but you're still fired up, and you do it for about 4 weeks. And then all of a sudden, you may not go one day, and then it becomes 2 days, and then it becomes a week, and then it becomes a month. And next thing you know, you're not doing it at all. And this is a very common thing, especially in fitness, but as well in dieting. That's why we have that concept of yo-yo dieting, right? Where people start diets and they might lose 10, 15, 20 pounds, and they're excited about it, and it kind of falls off, and then they gain it back. And so they struggle. So I think that, when you're talking about companies and how to do that, you're right. It is as easy as saying, hey, who wants to be well?
Right.
You'll get 100% of hands raised, right? So that's step one. Is everybody knows and realizes that they want to have better health. The rub comes in that it takes work, and it takes discipline, and it's not the most fun thing to do. I don't know about you, Brian, but I don't find it particularly pleasurable to do 3 sets of maxed out bench presses.
No, right.
Just not terribly pleasurable for me.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And our mind works in funny ways. Actually, the survival instincts of our mind is a part of our brain called the limbic system. There is this thing called the motivational triad, and there are three ingrained instinctual motivators. And actually, one of them is to seek pleasure and comfort. The second one is to avoid pain, and the third is to conserve energy. That's what you would do typically. That's what we did as humans many years ago. When we weren't guaranteed that we were going to get food every day like we have today with the grocery stores filled with foods and stuff.
Right.
So those instincts are still there, and they're heavy drivers. And if we all think back and think of that situation, and I use the bench press as an example. The bench press, obviously, hey, it's not a pleasurable thing. Does the bench press? I mean, it also it's kind of painful.
Right.
I mean, it's going to hurt.
Right.
And then, are you conserving energy while bench pressing? Well, no. You're actually expending much more energy. You're actually working against what is instinctual to our survival by doing weightlifting. And so,
Yeah.
So that tells you right off the bat that you're paddling upstream.
Right.
And so, as individuals, we have to overcome these natural desires to conserve energy and to do these and to avoid pain and to seek pleasure. So we really have to bring our cerebral cortex in, and because we can overcome these natural tendencies and really instill discipline. That's where I think companies need to focus on is changing mindsets, is changing minds, changing the lifestyle, and getting people to think along those lines rather than just trying to incentivize in the traditional ways that companies would incentivize.
No, absolutely. That's great stuff. And and I know from on my own journey, I guess too. I think you're right, exactly right when you say that the discipline part and the consistency part. And it's so easy to say, right, but so hard to do sometimes. But that's the key. And I think what you guys have to offer at PureCore there is the ability to to train with other people and the group fitness part of that. And that changed my mindset too. By you can go lift weights by yourself and you can go run around the block or you can do whatever you want. But I think when you get into a group and you start to develop the camaraderie with other people, you start to develop the accountability piece too. I think the accountability piece is a huge part of it as well. And I think that shows too with what you guys have to offer there. So I did want to touch base really quick before we wrap up, but top 5 reasons to have a wellness program. I know we talked a little bit about this, but I know there are 5 here that I've written down, but what are some maybe 5 that you can think of too, Greg? Like, maybe we start with the first one. Improving healthy behaviors is one reason to have a wellness program. Maybe talk about some of those behaviors that you would think that will be improved upon.
Well, I think for one thing, if we look at improving behavior, we have to look at what on the flip side of that coin is that we all start with bad habits. Sometimes we don't eat right. We're sedentary. We're on our screen time is a lot higher now, whether it be TV time or on our iPhones or whatever. And so we're much more sedentary than we used to be.
Mm-hmm.
So along with healthy behaviors, I think you have to look and say, how do we convert bad behaviors, bad habits? And so what I say is, we got to turn that on its head. We've got to overcome that and be willing to tell ourselves, if indeed we look to the future, if we are proactive, Brian, not reactive, we're thinking about the consequences of not living a healthy life down the road instead of just living day to day like somebody that would be thinking reactively. I think then you have the opportunity to look at these benefits, being able to turn your life around and overcome the sedentary lifestyle and begin to practice healthier behaviors. I like to think of fitness and nutrition as what's called a keystone habit or a keystone priority. You are now taking and prioritizing and kind of putting it up at the top as the keystone. And we all know the keystone is that central block in an arch that supports the entire wall in architecture. And that keystone, if we make our own health the keystone priority, everything else will fall into place. If we don't take care of ourselves, Brian, we can't take care of others. So that's why we want to reprioritize. Once we reprioritize and say my health is number one, then we won't have all the excuses that we all come up with. I don't have time. I got to run the kids here. I'm not feeling good today, or all those things that pop up. When your health is your top priority, you will make time. You will make room to make that happen. So I think converting these bad habits into reprioritizing our health, I think that goes a long way to improve behaviors across the board. You'll see big changes in your overall well-being as well. As we all know, fitness also is great because it really has a positive effect on our brain. It fires off great brain chemicals like dopamine, serotonin,
Yep.
and we get adrenaline running and that sort of thing. And that lasts for a good part of the day. In fact, I highly recommend people who may have an important business meeting at 8 or 9 o'clock to get in a pretty rigorous workout at 5 or 6. You're going to be the sharpest one in that meeting.
I
because
100% agree. No, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're absolutely right.
So I think if people understand and experience the positive nature of the mind being improved after a good workout, then they begin to see the advantages, and they'll be able to maybe make that turn.
No, absolutely. And I think too, this could be another topic altogether when you talk about healthcare and what healthcare is like in our country today and those types of things. And don't want to spend a whole lot of time going through that, but I think as we talk about those top 5 reasons to have a wellness program, I mean, don't you think it would be reducing healthcare costs would be top of the list, right?
Well, it certainly would be for somebody that's running a company.
Sure.
There'd be that. There would be along with that, how do you improve productivity in your environment as well? Those are two things you could hit the 2 birds with 1 stone there. I think really, when you're working out and when you're in better health, your immune system is primed. You have a much better chance at fending off pathogens like COVID and the flu and others, and dealing with them. So I think, in fact, I was talking with some of the vice president of HR yesterday, in fact, at the South Bend Clinic, and they have a wellness program that we're going to tie into. And they said that they have literally shown that they have fewer claims themselves, health claims, and a lower severity of health claims against their insurance plans there at the South Bend Clinic because of their wellness program. So there's a testimonial right there.
That's great.
Yes, it does work.
That's fantastic.
And it's an effective thing for management to think about. Is that, as well as like we said before, you get that euphoria after working out, and you're just in better shape and you're stronger, and so that's going to improve your overall productivity. You're not going to do that mid-morning slump in the chair, or start to nod out in your meeting or whatever.
Yeah.
Or after lunch or something like that.
Or the after lunch, the mid-afternoon, right? Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. You're absolutely right.
So I think that there's certainly huge benefits for companies to do a wellness program, and I mean, I think as well. I know we also talked about how important it was for recruitment and retention as well.
Absolutely.
I think if you create that ethos that I talked about, that's one of our 3 life pillars within that corporate environment that says, hey, we're bringing on people, we're making them healthy, we're giving them something a little bit more to look forward to in their life. I think the response back will be, I'm giving you better productivity. I believe in you. It's not just about the dollar sign. There might be a person that might accept $5,000 less in salary if they know they're going to be working in a super great environment that's really going to help them out, especially with their health.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of very important factors that go into that. But it all comes down to the individual, Brian, and that's the nut that the companies have to crack if they're going to put the wellness program together. Is they have to realize that it's going to be a little bit more difficult than the typical incentive program to make a wellness program work, and it takes a little bit more knowledge, and because you're dealing with basically behavioral psychology and sociology when you're dealing with healthcare. So,
Right. No, absolutely.
but
I think, and
no,
the final piece too, I think maybe the fifth one here, reducing overall health risks. I know that I saw an article that, with COVID, people aren't getting their normal screenings done just because they're being put off just due to the pandemic and just the overall way things are going right now. Maybe and the way I kind of tie this in too, if you can proactively take care of yourself, you not only are able to take care of others, right? But you're also able to minimize the risks of other serious health conditions too. So maybe speak to that and how someone, if they do proactively start to take care of themselves, the overall benefits of reducing other health risks too.
well, yeah, absolutely. The better shape you're in, there's lots of other things that go on. Brian, another statistic is that um, our bodies develop up until about the age of 30.
Mm.
And right around the age of 30 is when, unfortunately, we begin to start that decline towards our own mortality. I mean, that sounds kind of sick and gross, but they're like 30? But it's true. I mean, we're basically at our maximum health is about 28 to 30 years old, believe it or not. And then it starts to trail off. We start to lose some lean body mass. We begin to take on fat cells easier. Our bone density starts to lose to about 10% per decade,
Mm.
and then that increases at the age of 50. Now, those are typical statistics. What happens though when we are fit and when we are healthy and when we're working out is we can counter the speed with which our bodies are go into decline. So where somebody might be having those bad habits, right? Maybe they're smoking, they're not eating well, they're not working out, they're not sleeping well, they're stressed, all those kind of negative factors that play against someone's health. Well, you clean that up and you can flatten that curve out a little bit. You're going to have a better quality of life in your later years. And frankly, you're going to live longer statistically. And so, if that's not incentive enough for people to make that change, I don't know what is. But it does demand foresight. And,
Right.
I like to think of that old Fram oil filter commercial years and years ago, where that mechanic holds up the filter and says, "You can pay me now, or you can pay me later." When you
Sure.
have that great big transmission having to be redone, and I love that metaphor, that analogy,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just a little bit of payment in your life, just a little bit of your time to make yourself healthy, and just turn it into a lifestyle, and you're going to be thankful you did. You want to think proactively instead of reactively, because reactively means maybe in your 40s and 50s or 60s, it's too late.
Right.
Something major could happen, and you're going to you don't want to ever be in a position of saying, "Gosh, I wish I would have been more proactive 30 years ago." And stuff.
No.
So I think
Absolutely.
that's kind of the way you look at it. And my gosh, the benefits are huge, but hey, it's just about quality of life, and
Yeah.
both in our physical being and in our mental being,
No,
and that's what
absolutely.
wellness is all about. And just everybody that's listening, you want it, you want that health.
Right.
I could do a poll, and 100% of you will say, "I want to improve my health." The question is are you willing to put the effort into it? Change your priorities, put your health at the top, and keep it there for the rest of your life. Make it sort of like a life mission.
No, absolutely.
That's, I guess that's how I would look at it, Brian.
Perfect. Well said, Greg. And maybe to finish up, how can someone get a hold of you guys, that Pure Core, if they want to check you guys out?
I think the best way to do that is to start off with our website at www.purecorehealth.com. And from there, you can. I've got my cell out there as a contact number. You can also check out. I'm building some more stuff on our 3 Life Wellness program. And in fact, come to think of it, we're going to start a 12-week challenge program where we're going to. It's a premium program. There'll be some cost to it, or what I'd say investment, but nonetheless, it'll be a 3-month program that's going to work on mindset, getting people turned around, and then we're going to be working out at PureCore, and then also Martin Supermarkets and their dietitians coming on board, and we're going to work with Chef April there as well, and so we're going to integrate with Martin's, and it's going to be I think, a great 1-2 punch on the
Oh,
fitness
fantastic.
and nutrition side. So everybody will be able to go out and check that out on our. It's going to be our it's a page called the Challenge Within
Okay.
at purecorehealth.com, and people can go and check that out. Get back in touch with us.
Awesome. Awesome. Greg, Mackey, thank you so much for your time today. I know you guys, you and your wife, Suka, they do an incredible job. And I know I'm very thankful for you guys and your friendship. And I guess we'll see you at 5:15 tomorrow morning.
Absolutely, Brian. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you back here in the gym, buddy.
All right. Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, take care.